This computer.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, it tells you.
It tells me I have the power. Welcome, everybody, to the first Sherlocki-Ann meeting of 2025. Wah! We only have three of them, so any A or N month, because we're funny that way. Um, and Andriaco, do we have any news, and anyone else? Feel free to jump in and say if do we have any Scion news or Sherlocki-Ann news that you want to share? Maybe. I don't know if I don't.
Wow.
Sorry. I did.
Well, New York was a success,
Oh, how did that go? Yeah.
up at the Baker Street weekend. That was excellent. Um, oh, more people are coming in here. Uh,
Good.
so that was a good weekend as usual. Although everybody kind of has different things to do, we end up in different places. But I can say the Gaslight Gala was a success this year. And I think we'll go back where it was this year next year.
Oh,
So we
good.
did Ash Wednesday dinner, Ash brunch. Of course, the speaker was good. He was the one who wrote the Sherlockian
Oh, okay.
and talked about it. And what else happened while we were up there? Regina, you were there too. What
Um,
else?
what are we talking about? I came in the
The
middle of
BSI
this.
weekend, just in
PSI
general.
weekend. Oh, okay. Yeah, gosh, let me think.
There were some really cool investitures this year.
Yeah,
A lot of drinking.
Shayna Carter, a lot of
right.
drinking.
Right.
Yeah, for a change. I'm also, I guess we covered this before the recording, but I'm also coming to you live from 221 BCon in Atlanta, semi live.
You're alive.
Yeah.
You look alive.
And there are a lot of Sherlocki-Anns here. I know Rudy was on the email. Rob Nunn is my roommate here. Kendall's here, but I think she's working the booth
Yeah.
in the dealer's room. So yeah, a lot of folks here.
Well, say hi to everybody for us.
She's a hound.
If anyone is has any other news they want to share, please let us know because there's so
And
many.
Dayton went well,
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
as we talked about. Dayton.
Oh, yeah,
That
Dayton
one,
was really good.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
Holmes Doyle and
Yeah.
Friends. Hmm.
Yeah.
That was cool.
We
And
we
then we
filled
have
up.
the Scion of Scions meeting, the conclave,
Enclave, yep.
coming up at the end of April, which is going to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys will
Hey,
have to look.
Regina,
I met up with. I'm not going to remember her name. Keep talking for a minute. I'm going to find it.
I was going to say Graham Moore is the name of the author of the Sherlockian, who was the distinguished lecturer this year at the BSI weekend.
Right.
He was great. No one has ever given that entertaining of economics talk, or vice versa, that much economics in a Sherlockian talk.
right.
What kind of economics?
I
It
don't think
w-
I've ever heard an economics talk in all the ones I've been to.
it was about the
A lot of
It was
John
medical.
interesting. It was
Maynard,
definitely
yeah,
different.
John Maynard Keynes in World War I, was it, or World War II, where he hopped on his motorcycle and they called him down from Oxbridge, and immediate like needed economics advice about how to prosecute the war, and how to ramp up production in the UK, and just all of the things that an economist loves talking about. And certainly the success of the free world depended upon certain decisions that were made at that time.
Fun. Well, I can't find it. So I have I met up locally in person with another Sherlockian, which doesn't happen in Las Vegas, which is where I'm at. And she's going to be at the Scion of Scion meetings.
Oh,
So and
really
she's going
cool.
to start one here. So it's the only Las Vegas Scion. And so talk to her. I know the last time I was at the St. Louis one back a while, but there were a lot of people that said they would love to come to a conference in Las Vegas. And I'm like, we don't have a Scion in Las Vegas technically, but
Oh,
now
look, Carolyn's on the Zoom chat with us,
Carolyn's on
on the
there. She's
Zoom.
the one from Las
Carolyn.
Vegas.
and
Sorry,
Tom
Carolyn.
Six too, right?
What would you call your Scion in
Yeah,
Vegas? We got to come
Carolyn
up with.
has it.
Oh,
Carolyn,
what is it?
share your screen. She's here. Can you come on? Because she's
She's
muted.
got her
Hey,
video
she's got her
turned off.
picture off too.
Now she's not muted, but she won't let it. She's
I'm not
adorable.
muted.
Why aren't you showing us yourself?
Well, it's early. I don't,
I know.
it's early.
Very early. Look
Um,
at me.
yeah. It's called the Honorable Ronald Adair Las Vegas Card Room because he
Oh
liked
my
to play
gosh.
cards. He liked to play whist. He was like into cards and stuff. So I thought that was a cool name. I did play around with the Las Vegas Opium Den, but I didn't want the.
Good choice. I think you went the
Get
right
the
way.
wrong,
I,
get the
I think
wrong
the card
people
room's better.
joining.
Yeah,
That'll be in 10.
yeah.
Well, so
So
look
anyway,
for her when
We
you're
call
at
you the
that.
Whist Club of Las Vegas, I guess, the
yeah,
short version. The
yeah.
Whist Club
So.
of
And it's
Well,
going to be
speaking,
sorry, we're going to talk about like non-canonical things like movies, pastiches, TV shows, stuff like that. So
awesome.
everybody's welcome.
Cool.
And
Well,
that's what
when
Tom,
you get, like, go ahead, Max.
go ahead. I was going to say, you and Tom Sticks already sent out a Zoom invite about that.
Oh,
If anybody wants that, I guess request it from Carolyn.
Yeah, I'll put the email in the chat, and then you can just email me, and then I'll put you on the list.
perfect.
Yeah.
That works.
Speaking of Las Vegas Sherlocki-Anns, though, I was going to give Micah another bump here. He was on Penn and Teller's Fool Us, and it's a really great presentation. And so if you haven't seen that, go seek it out.
Micah,
That's the
Micah? Are you
yeah,
in
Micah.
Vegas too? I can't see. Oh,
I don't think he's
Hey,
based in.
oh,
Go ahead.
yeah, hi, a long-time listener, first-time caller. Thanks for taking my call. Max, I really appreciate it. And I'm not in Vegas, but you're right. In order to perform it for Penn and Teller, they flew me to Vegas. And then, excuse me, not long after that, I got to perform it for Nicholas Meyer, which was just a huge honor. So,
That's
Max,
great.
thanks for the shout out, man. Yeah, appreciate
Yeah,
it.
for real. No, like, got to lift that up, especially since we're reuniting or rekindling the James Fillmore Magic Society Scion. So if anyone has an interest in magic, if you perform, if you are delighted by magicians and wizardry, you're welcome to contact me. But Micah, you're one of the first people I thought about for sure.
Dude, thank you. Yeah, and I remember seeing an email about that.
Yep.
Do you have a link? Do you have a link or something, or maybe I should just
There's
find the
Mark.
email
no,
to
it's
get more
just an
info?
informal. Go ahead, Ann.
One of our illustrious clients, Mark Lehman, is a professional magician, so I think he'd be
Really?
really interested in that.
Yep.
He's
Cool.
Be at that.
semi-retired now. I mean, only does certain shows, but he performed at Dayton one year, didn't he, Ann?
Mhm.
And
I
see,
was at that.
Ann the Greater.
And he'll be at
Awesome.
the conclave, so we'll have to get him together with you, Max.
That's
Yeah,
great. No, I'd love
also,
to talk to him. I don't know if I've met him.
John Sherwood is a magician,
Yep.
and Brent Morris. Those
Yep.
two are both magicians and Sherlocki-Anns.
Brand
Yeah,
is, yeah.
actually, John C. Sherwood has been in the James Fillmore Society in the last incarnation before it disappeared again, and so he's actually one of our I don't know what you'd call it, veteran magicians in the Fillmore Society. So
Who is
yeah,
that?
it's John Sherwood.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that doesn't
and
surprise me.
Brent has been trying to teach me the Pharaoh shuffle so
Oh,
far,
yeah.
semi-successfully. So yeah, it's definitely a small crew, but also
Mhm.
Dan Stashauer performed magic at the
Oh,
BSI
right. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
dinner, and so there's a lot of us. Even if you can only pull a quarter out of a child's ear, that still counts. But so far, I'm at about a dime, so I'm still working my way up.
I can do a penny.
Inflation.
Yeah. All right. Well, we want to kick off our meeting because we're focusing on finding Ann Adler in the Redheaded League. And so Sandy has, I believe, a limerick for the Redheaded League to get us in the right frame of mind.
I do. He copied page after page after page. The pawnbroker complained in a rage. It was not a good deal. His own kneecaps were real. He'd been snookered, a man of his age. The end.
Bravo. I like that one. Let's see, I'll share my screen if I can. Let's see, I gotta pull it up. I'm gonna share, we'll talk with the particulars here. Okay. Guys, can you see it? Can you see it now?
No.
Not yet,
Do I need to give you
Yeah,
permission again?
probably.
let me do
You might
this.
Yeah.
need to highlight yourself as a speaker.
Yeah. Start talking and I'll share screen.
Okay, I'm talking. Here I am. I can have,
Okay.
can you hear? There we go. I think you might see it now.
We do.
You
We can see
do.
it.
You do.
Now this picture said these guys had red hair. This is pretty faint. From the story, it had to be really red, right?
That's what make it in the link.
But what we're just so I wanted to do a little recap since we haven't spoken since last year. But Ann Adler, of course, is the younger sister of Irene, and she's a huge Sherlock fan, as we all are. So she's trying to help him without his knowledge, which at some point I think we might have to discuss. Does Sherlock know? It'd be hard pressed for me to believe that he is unaware of her. But she's very clever and she's able to gather and analyze information and either direct the people or the information somehow to Sherlock. We know a lot of facts too about her personal life, but I won't go into all of that. It is on our website. So, how does Ann Adler discover the Red-Headed League? That is the question, which I think is this is our hardest one so far. She's smart enough to have also read the newspaper. I feel like Anne is a newspaper girl, and she would have seen this advertisement, which had to strike a lot of people as odd, a very odd one. I'd like us to consider if she would actually dress like a man and maybe put on a red wig and go check it out, try to get hired for the job. Also, could she have been lying in wait, and when Mr. Wilson left the job, could she have spoken to him to go, what is this that you got hired to do? And then possibly she could have been a tenant in the building. She could have decided maybe that's how to get close to him. So he could have spoken to her when it all ended, although we're talking like 8 weeks, so a couple months. It also came to me later that maybe she actually went to the pawn shop and found out that he wasn't working anymore and met Spaulding and thought he was a little too clever for the job. Anyway, we'll see. This is where let's look at this is all the same sort of things that she could have done and couldn't have done. And feel free to jump in if anyone has thoughts on these. I might go ahead, Max.
I just posted in the chat that, perhaps they either uncovered her or were suspicious because as you say, maybe she put on a wig. And so when Jabez Wilson is applying, they try to tear his out by the roots just to make sure that it's his real hair.
I like that. That works for me. So if that happened and she was found out, then she could have actually gotten a little maybe it seemed like the building had plenty of empty spaces. Yeah, feel free to speak up because I can't see the chat when I have my screen up in PowerPoint. But I also think she could have followed that up if she found out who Wilson was and go figure out his shop. So all of this, I feel like her goal was maybe to plant in Wilson's mind that this was strange and someone's taking advantage of him.
She could have been working in the building administration office. And so when Wilson went to see the man about where the tenant went, maybe she could have, at that point said, hey, you might go talk to this Sherlock Holmes fellow as he's on his way out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she could have.
Could she have been working? Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, could she have been working as an agent with either the official police or, the Pinkertons in the background, tracing these criminals and just not known what they were trying to accomplish?
Well, they had a history, right, of robbing. I'm not a history of banks. My thing was in this story, I wondered, has anyone ever written a panache about the what Spalding and his guys were doing. I mean, that was 8 weeks of a lot of story. They must have had issues. They had to come up with this silly redheaded league. They were digging and digging. I mean, why did it take so long that they suddenly bailed on paying this guy off? They quit too early in paying him.
They did.
And then why not just knock him out and tie him up somewhere?
Well, maybe they ran out of cash.
Yeah,
maybe they
they
just
had
ran out of money, and yeah.
I guess they didn't believe in harming people. I mean,
Maybe the digging took longer than they thought it would, and they hadn't planned accordingly. They needed to budget better.
they did. They didn't budget. Well, you think about it, they had to run into some serious problems. That's why, to me, the real story that would have been interesting was their story of how they did this and what stopped them from succeeding. Well, obviously Sherlock, but other things stood in their way. Any other thoughts about where Anne? Let's see. This will help you think. This was just other thoughts. That's not helping you at all. Did anyone else have an affinity for the story and see some flaws that or places Anne could have appeared? Do you think she was there after the fact to see it all come down if she had guided? I mean, she could have just gotten it. A lot of times we've said that her connection is as right there at Sherlock's house, that she could have been helped out from time to time, and maybe she heard about it and she's just following up to see what happened as a true Sherlockian fan. I'm not sure, but
Well, this is one of the stories that has a sort of direct copycat later in the Three Daredevs, and I find this story a lot more believable in that it may be the original case that introduced the concept of this. You know, it's the Franco Midland Hardware Company and the Three Daredevs. Here it's the Encyclopedia Britannica.
That was the stockbrokers.
Stockbrokers. Sorry.
But the Three Daredevs also copied this. Yeah.
Right. Instead of Redhead. That's right. Instead of Redheads, it was Daredevs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you think? Sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just going to say. So maybe this is the original story, is my thought, and that it was so good that the plots were reused when Watson wanted a little extra spending money.
Well, it's a very reused plot for even other future, not Doyle. I mean, was the Doyle the first one that came up with they're digging underground at night to break into the bank?
Well, I think a lot of the plots were reused. It's easier to reuse a plot. Somebody said there's only 7 plots in all of Little to begin with. So,
well,
in this case, there was a real copycats. There were real copycats too. At least 2 that I know of. There's a Baker Street robbery that was very similar to this. In the 1970s, exactly. And then there was
one in Paris. There was one in Paris. I know there was one in.
Yep.
There were a few of them.
Yeah. So there are real. This is maybe ripped from the headlines or even inspiring the headlines.
Let's face it. The easiest way to get into a bank is to break through the wall and go in. That's from the building next door. And any city where the buildings are close to one another, you can do that.
Yeah. I agree. I think it was ripped from the headlines. All right, guys.
Doyle also complained when he was trying to write Holmes. That's part of why he kept stepping away, was that he was having trouble coming up with more plots. So it also makes sense that he would go back to some of the ones that worked before.
Very, very, very true. So even though we're not meeting again until August, the next one is The Adventure of the Dying Detective. We'll see where Anne is in that story. But I don't know what our consensus was. We probably need to have a little vote, but either she was in the building somewhere, maybe helping out, maybe bringing more tobacco for the 3-pipe problem, which comes up in this one. And,
hiding under the bed.
Hiding under the bed in his house. Do you think that's what she was just like living in the wall to 221B?
She could be helping Mrs. Hudson. Maybe Mrs. Hudson hired a girl. Or she could be posing as that young girl that helped Jabez Wilson. Wasn't there a young girl working there?
But yeah, you're right. But she would have been there a while.
Yeah, he had a niece, if I remember right,
Yeah,
because Holmes thought there might have been a romantic, that might have been what drew Spaulding in, and then he realized that wasn't why he was working for half wages.
yeah, yeah. All right, let me see. I'm going to stop the share and get back to. Did they
Didn't,
go back
didn't
to
he
you guys?
claim that? Didn't he claim he was a photographer as well? Like he was
Yes.
working in the
Right.
basement for
Yeah.
photography studio development.
Yeah. Well, that
So
had to
could.
be to get down and see if they could even dig, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time developing things in the basement.
There was a plot.
Yeah, that wasn't suspicious at all. The one part about this story I thought was very funny is that he was like too clever of a person to have the job. That to me was probably the big kicker for, I think, Sherlock. Why would this smart guy be working for this dumb guy? Basically, he was saying. Not a bad point. That's
You
too
know,
funny.
the Redheaded League always reminds me, or the caper in the Redheaded League also reminds me of Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption,
Yes.
where he's just digging a hole and digging a hole, and he takes the uh, pebbles out to the yard every time he goes outside. And that's based on the Stephen King novel, the Ballad of Rita
Mhm.
Cooper, I think it is, Rita Hayworth rather.
Oh, because that was the picture over it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I'm going to throw this over to Anne Andriaco. If you'd like to introduce our speaker today, Anne Lewis. We're so happy to have her here.
Well, Anne was one of the three Annes who were standing in St. Louis when Anne Kimbrough said, we should start a group for Sherlocki-Anns. And I said, well, we already have, it's the Sherlocki-Anns, and there's Anne Lewis, who walked over and joined us. So it was the three Anns together standing in front of that fireplace. So Anne Lewis is a member of several Scions, as well as being a BSI. She lives in Indianapolis, so Shelley knows her as an illustrious client. She is also part of the Cincinnatian art group, the Tankerville Club. I don't know how many other organizations she may belong to, but Anne is trained singer. She lived in New York for a while, worked for comic book company. She has a very interesting background. She is married and now lives in Lebanon, Indiana, and has a young son who's graduating from Purdue this year, I
He
think.
is in his final year at
I think
Purdue.
he's finishing
Yeah,
up at Purdue in engineering. So,
in
yeah.
technology, actually,
So,
IT.
and so I'll turn it over to Anne.
Okay.
Okay,
How
that
can I
works
share?
perfectly.
Yeah,
I
just
can give you
I
that.
studied. Okay, cool. Let me know when I'm ready.
It says share screen, so you should be able to.
Okay. I just decided to really quickly start being I trained as a singer late. And it sounds kind of funny to say that, and it'll make more sense once I get into talking about Irene, or Irena, Elena, however we say her name. Um, what because I started studying voice at age 25. I did not know I could sing. I was a horn player for most of my life, was my young life anyway. And so my sister, when I moved out to New York, I was living in New Jersey with my sister, and she dragged me along to audition for the Philharmonic Garden State Philharmonic chorus because she wanted to sing in that. And since I was with her, I could do that. So I went with her and I auditioned. And when I sang for the director, he asked me if I'd ever studied voice, and I said, "Nah, that's not. I'm a horn player." And he's like, "Okay, but you should study voice." And I'm like, okay, whatever. And my sister, as I was walking away, my sister socked me in the arm. She goes, "Ann, he's from Juilliard. You should listen to what he's telling you." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I moved to New York and started working for DC Comics. And when I did, I didn't think I could actually afford to study, but I had several people recommend a certain teacher to me, and I started studying. She was through Mannes School of Music on the Upper West Side in Manhattan, and I studied with her for 15 years privately. And the thing but is by the time I started, most opera singers would be auditioning for opera companies. So I was too late to really ever do opera, but I did manage when I came to Indianapolis. I sang with the Indianapolis Opera Chorus, and that was a whole lot of fun. Did La Traviata. I got to be dressed up in all these really crazy clothes and hold up wine glasses and sing. And it was just, so I have done opera before and I've sung with opera companies. And I learned a whole lot about what it is to be a real opera singer, people who are standing out in front. I never wanted to do that anyway because that's too intimidating. But it's a lot of it was really, cool to be able to use my voice and use it the way I'm using it now and be paid for it. So that's kind of cool. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to show you, talk a little bit about Irena and what um her situation would have been like. Let me see if I can get this onto. Okay. All right. So Ann Adler. I put it as her middle name. I didn't know. It doesn't really sound right, but who knows? Life and music of a 19th century opera diva. Okay. So what do we know about her? We know that Irena was born in New Jersey. Joycey, I didn't know if she talked like this or not, but I don't think so. I think she probably was a bit more highfalutin than that, because she had, in order to study voice, specifically as a woman, born in 1858, you'd have to have private lessons. She probably came from a wealthy family, or she had patrons who would have escorted her to Europe to study, because otherwise you needed patrons for advanced, musical study. And the best musical schools at that point were in Europe. There were none of the famous musicals we know. Music schools that we know of in New York exist yet. Juilliard, Mannes, New York School, all those great music schools that we know that are in New York right now didn't really get set up until after the turn of the century. So they really weren't there. However, they had opera houses and they did have opera performers coming in and singing, and most of those people were trained again in Europe. So what was her option? Someone who was probably musically gifted at a young age, to be able to sing, she had to study privately at first. And then that private teacher would have arranged for her to meet someone like a letter of introduction to a renowned singing teacher in Europe. That's probably was her main destination at that particular point. So the only functioning opera house in New York when she was growing up was the Academy of Music, and that catered to the patrons. But they were old, what we call old rich, or the elite rich. Of the period. And those people didn't like the nouveau riche. They didn't like the Vanderbilts, Morgans, and Rockefellers. And so they were kind of frozen out. They couldn't get seats. They wouldn't sell, season opera tickets to these guys. They couldn't have their own. I mean, they probably could maybe get an off chance to come in and see one opera, but they really couldn't, have their own boxes and stuff in that establishment, because it was the elite, the old rich that wanted that. So and it really only lasted until 1886. And part of the reason why is because the Metropolitan Opera was founded, and it kind of put these guys out of business, which is kind of interesting how that worked. But the Academy of Music stayed as an opera house kind of for a while. It brought in not what's the word, trying to think of what the kind of entertainment was called after before burlesque. Vaudeville, sorry, vaudeville. So they started doing vaudeville in that venue and stuff, but ultimately it ended up being torn down. But the timing for her growing up and studying doesn't really work out for Irene to ever have sung in this venue. So where could she have sung if she stayed in the United States? Or it probably would have been the Metropolitan. So the Metropolitan Opera started in the 1880s. In fact, in 1880 itself, a bunch of the nouveau riche got together at a restaurant, Delmonico's, which is still in business, and they formed a committee to start the Metropolitan Opera, and it officially opened in 1883. At this particular point, because of the time she was born and everything, Irene was probably already in Europe. She was probably already studying in Europe or singing in Europe. However, she may have been invited over for a role which often occurred with more popular singers. They would bring them over from Europe to sing in their productions of various things. Hey, we need a really good contralto. Who can get it? Oh, maybe we get this chick from Warsaw, which she's really an American. So and from the area. And having living here in Indianapolis, there is one great opera singer from the Met who lives here. Her name is Angie Brown, and she will come back to Indianapolis and sing for us. She's sung in some productions with the Indianapolis Opera, but she's primarily one of the better opera singers at the Met. So it's kind of cool to have her in town. She comes and sings concerts with the the Indianapolis Opera Chorus and things. So, but she studied at IU Bloomington, so she's pretty good. So anyway, where did she study ultimately? The best, most accessible music school for Irene, because she was an English speaking girl, would have been in the Royal Academy of Music in London. And they had youth instruction. They would take younger students, probably around the age of puberty, which I'm going to mention later, and they'd start training them to sing, especially if they knew they had vocal talent. So you'd have her studying privately. The private teacher would have arranged for her to get over to Europe. Her parents, either or someone else, would pay for that, and they would probably escort her to Europe to audition for the Royal Academy of Music, and she would be taught there, and she'd have to live in London and be educated in London. This might explain, though, why she came to London after her retirement. Because if you remember, she was singing for the Imperial Opera of Warsaw, and she's hanging out in mainland Europe. So why did she come back to London, start hanging up here, and meet this, young strapping lawyer that she ended up marrying? It's probably because she had a affinity for London, having studied here. So that would be my recommendation. Is probably she went to the Royal Academy of London, and she had teachers or friends that she was close to here. So where specifically, I'm still going to the where did she study? She would have started training vocally at around puberty, about age 12 and above, some around 13, 14, between 12 and 14 years old. The earliest she could enter performance would have been about age 18, maybe 17. However, she would not have received undergraduate instruction at the Royal Academy if that's the case. So she would not have gone on to go at a college level. I mean, it wasn't called that, but it's more of advanced studies. So she, at around age, she probably had enough, and she was probably good enough that she could go to La Scala. Now, La Scala is in Milan. It's one of the biggest opera stages in the world and has been for centuries. So it's pretty important, the fact that she sang there, and Holmes goes, when she sang, very good, she sang at La Scala. Yeah, she was probably pretty good and very, very talented to go to La Scala. Between 18 and 20 years of age. So you can see, and this is the case even now with young opera singers, you finish your undergraduate, and then you are auditioning for opera companies around the age of 21, 22 years old. So that is part of the reason why I said I was late studying voice, but she was already there doing it probably around the age of 20. So that would have been at age 20, she would have been, it's 1878 at this point. It's 10 years away from when she would meet Holmes in Scandal in Bohemia. So her career years, she didn't have a very long career. 10 to 12 years maximum. And we see that in the stories. So she started likely performing between 1876 and 78. And she would sing initially at the Royal Academy of Music, because they did have an opera house there, doing student performances and even professional performances there. Patronage got her to La Scala, where she sang for 4 to 5 years there. And then she moved up to be a prima donna, which is the first, or one of the main female singers in a company. And she moved to be prima donna at the Imperial Opera of Warsaw, where she probably sang for another 45 years. She retired at age 28 to 30. So that's how old she was. Can you imagine being that young and retiring from the stage? Kind of interesting. But she was 30 years old in 1888 when Scandal takes place. That's considered old for women who want to be marrying, right? At this particular point, right? So it's not necessarily for singers who can sing into their 50s at this particular point. These days, considering our health standards are better, an opera singer can sing into their probably early 70s. Okay. And then they have to retire because their voices start to go. I'm 58 now. It's like, hey, and my voice is still pretty good, still fine. And it's going to probably stick around until I'm, as long as I don't get lazy. But most of them do retire at age in their 65 to 70 years old is when they retire now, but they would retire in their 50s if they were in good health. So what did she sing? Now this is what the cool part is. Contraltos, or the lower vocal register of a woman, had some great parts. I mean, they really did. They varied from female lead roles to trouser roles, which were young men or male use. So she could play a guy on stage, and she did often. Probably one of the greatest roles of the time was Caesar, which is Julius Caesar by Handel. And the title character was performed by could be performed by guys, but they had to be countertenor or by in Handel's time they still had castrati around and they would sing this. So contralto, a woman could do it, and the role has a whopping 9 arias, and that's a lot of big pieces for her to sing in this piece. So she could easily be preferred for a young man, and it was her bread and butter as a contralto to sing guy roles. So she did it a lot. So walking around as a guy, not unusual. So now, why did she retire so early? Women were workhorses, as I say here. They were not treated equally as the male counterparts, and they were often forced to sing even when they were not well. And that overwork often shortened their careers, which is probably one of the reasons why she retired so young. Becoming a courtesan probably saved her life. It may have. It might have extended the length of it because she was, again, being worked to death. Regardless, her health or her voice is probably permanently damaged from overwork or illness. Now, I wrote here singer's disease and tuberculosis. Those are two primarily illnesses that would certainly end your career. Well, what is singer's disease? Most of us now call it acid reflux. Acid reflux disease. I got it when I was starting to sing, and my singing teacher said, "You get yourself to an ear, nose, and throat guy, and you get that taken care of now because it will destroy your voice." And it happened a lot because the way you sing as a singer, it expands your rib cage and everything else like that, and it looses. There's a little, I call it a sphincter muscle between your esophagus and your stomach, and it weakens that. So the acid would flow up all the time as a result of your training because of the way you're trained to sing, and it would destroy your voice. So I don't know if she got acid reflux. I don't know if she had tuberculosis, but either one of them, considering that they floated around a lot, you end up with consumption. And just like the chicken La Traviata, she probably shortened your life. So both could ruin a singer's life. Okay, so scandal and behind. She died at age 33, or at least we assume she did because of what was said in Scandal. Now, there's a lot of people who don't assume that she died, that she went on to do all sorts of crazy things like, solve mysteries and stuff. So, and I'm not opposed to that. But according to what we understand in Scandal Bohemia, he says the late Irene Ambler of dubious and questionable memory. And so she would have died before the story was published in 1891. So at minimum, she died at age 33 or maximum. So I guess that would be maximum. And again, her health was likely damaged to her health and career and overwork. So what I'm going to show you is a little clip from, where is it? I'm going to get out of this because I have it already pulled up down here. Here it is. This. It's a scene from Scandal and Bohemia by the Granada series. And we're going to hear Irene singing. In this piece that she's singing, I have sung before. It's beautiful. It's actually from an opera by Handel, which tells me she probably might have sung Julius Caesar if she knows Handel. She sounds like she's got the perfect voice for Handel. And it's called Dove Sei in the opera. Here it's in English. It's called Art Thou Trouble, and I have sung it in English myself. It's a pretty piece. So you're going to hear it and hear.
I can't hear anything. Can you guys?
Okay, so um that song, I don't know if would you guys like to hear the whole thing?
We
We
couldn't hear
couldn't hear
We
anything.
it.
didn't hear
I
anything.
didn't hear
Oh,
anything.
you didn't hear it. Hold on a second. I'm going to try that again.
Okay.
I'm going
I
to
think
take
you're
out.
going to have to do it
I
from the
took out my.
PowerPoint. It's got
I'm
to
going
be
to try it.
included in the PowerPoint, or else I don't think we can hear what you have on your
We can
computer.
hear her though, so I don't know. It's weird.
Right.
All right, let's try this.
Maybe make it louder.
Yeah. All right, hold on a second here. You'll just hear the sound. You're not sharing the screen, so.
Let us know when you hear it because we still don't hear it.
Okay. I hear it over here.
You have earbuds in or something? Because
No, I took them out.
yeah, because it's weird that because we can hear you. You might just have to sing it for us. No, I'm joking because I know it's too early.
It's not. Music will calm me. Music shall be thine. Music shall be thine. Music, source of all gladness. Is thy songs to shrine. Music, music, so divine. I forgot the words.
Woo! That's far
Anyway,
better
so
than the
that
recording.
yeah. But I was trying to get it from the BBC, the Grenada, because that's what she sang, and it's from an opera called Rosalinda by Handel. Anyway, and I was singing in the same key as her. The version I sang, because I'm a soprano, they took it up two steps. I prefer to sing it in her key, actually.
You were wonderful. We could hear you. We still couldn't hear her.
But that's from the thing. And actually, I could give you guys a link so you can hear the whole piece.
There
How
you
about
go.
that?
Do that.
I'll give you the whole piece. This is what was sung in the Grenada television series. What Holmes? Boop. That's the full version, and then I will give you the Jeremy Brett clip so you guys can clip on it, click on it, and watch it on your own. This is a little thing of him going, "Oh, she sounds so pretty." So, two links in the chat. Okay.
Anne, you're muted.
I
Other
am.
Anne.
Oh, well, there I
No,
am.
you aren't. Other
Yeah,
Anne
I
is,
had to
but her
mute
lips were
myself because
moving.
I had to mute myself when I opened the clip. It
Ryan.
started playing one of the Anns. See, we didn't figure out that problem. Well, Anne Lewis, the singer, you're the singer now. Bravo.
Singing Anne.
The singing Anne. Oh,
Yeah, Anne
Yeah.
has sung Christmas carols. She's for our Tankerville Club. She's done all sorts of and tell them your BSI name.
Oh, my BSI name is the Polyphonic Motets of Lassus. And part of the reason why is because I did presentations on the polyphonic motets of Lassus at Dayton. I also wrote two papers on it for BSI publications. So it's pretty cool. It's a very long name, but I do sing a lot of polyphony in the choir at the cathedral, and we do a lot of Lassus pieces. And polyphony, choir is kind of a different. I can't sing like an opera singer when I'm singing that. I have to take what's called the spin. You guys might think of it as the vibrato, which I have naturally. I'd have to kind of straighten that out a bit and make the tone a bit more straight in order to sing polyphony. And I kind of have to hold back a bit because if I really let it blast, I'll be sticking out of the texture. So it's a bit more of a challenge to sing polyphony in a choral group, but I love doing it. It's really cool. And Uh, Lassus is one of my favorites. He's really quite a cool composer. So it's a lot of fun. Do a lot of Palestrina and others too. Vittoria, all those cool Renaissance composers. We sing a lot of that there.
It's a
Kind of
wonderful
cool.
gift. I mean, I can't sing anything, so I need a choir so I can blend in. Uh, any questions? I was wondering about being an opera singer to start up and get trained. How would she have had the funds for that? Would it had to come from your family, or do you get sponsors early on?
Yeah, I did say she would have to either have rich parents
Mm.
or she'd have their parents would have to know people to give that maybe if they realize, hey, my girl's got a vocal talent, they would take her to the probably the wealthiest person in town and say, hey, my daughter can really sing and you could be her patron. And would look reflect very well on you to have this opera singer being one of your to be the patron for this young singer. And they might have her sing at people's houses, which was very, known to do. They'd have someone come and play, and they would sing in their what they call like sitting room singing.
The
They would do
musical?
those little concerts,
Yeah.
and that was a way to introduce a young singer to possible patrons, is to come and sing at their parties or a little tease or something like that. And the patron would say, hey, I really want to sponsor her for her lessons. And ultimately, if she got good enough, they would say, hey, you know what, we probably should take her to Europe. And so that's the way it'd have to be. She'd have to have either rich parents or a patron to pay for her to get her lessons and to get her over to Europe.
Yeah. I don't think she had rich parents.
Yeah,
That's
it's possible. And
from
Jersey,
Jersey.
they'd have to get this accent out.
Well, remember, she retired young. And yet she had the
You're from
money to
Jersey,
have a
Jersey.
house. She had the money to do whatever she wanted to do. So maybe she did come from a wealthy family. And at that point, her
Yeah, it's
parents had
entirely
left her the
possible.
money.
Possible.
Another thing is if her parents were musicians, they knew people, you
Hmm.
know? Yeah, if her parents, were musicians themselves, they might not have been ultra wealthy, but they knew people who knew people. You know what I'm saying? And so she could get the patronage she needed to get over there. Had a sugar daddy
More
to pay
likely.
for her to get over there.
Like
Well,
the
with the
king.
Yeah.
king and all
But
that, you know.
the thing is that I'm almost of the opinion too that she had a patron and she got used to the whole system, which would explain how she became an adventuress because she knew wealthy people could take care of her. So when she had to retire, which I think she probably was not well from being overworked, and those opera companies could sometimes do that to you. She probably went the whole route of being a courtesan to get someone to take care of her like they did before.
It makes
So having
100%
people,
sense. I like the
yeah.
connection. Any other questions for Anne? You did so wonderful. I love that talk. It really opened the world to me a little bit more for Irene. And I like that subtle suggestion at the beginning. Was Irene actually Anne? We've never, we think Anne was the younger sister, but I don't know. Maybe we should explore that. It's very possible.
That's
It's
very
very
possible.
possible. These theories, we are exploring them all, but for now, Anne Adler is the younger sister, but maybe there were two Anne Adlers. Maybe Irene actually wasn't the late one. She just became Anne 2.0.
Well,
She
I
had
was
two
thinking that
spots.
The older sister, had a middle name Anne, because, and then, what that happened in my family. I'm number 7 of 8 children, and my name is Anne. It's my first name, right? Uh, Two of my sisters have got the middle name Anne as well. So there was Karen Ann and Teresa Ann. So there was
A lot of Annes. So it's very possible. Were they Annes with an E though? Because you're like me
I'm
and
Ann without an E.
same here, which is to me it's the true Anne. Sorry. Oh, and we have Maximilian Anne, so he's without an E as well.
No, we're the Latin Anne.
Is that what we are?
The
Okay.
Latin Ann.
Yeah, French Anne has the E.
That's cool.
Well, my sister was named for me. My name is Anne Claire, but her name's Claire Maria.
Oh, clever. I like that.
So my sister came along 7 years later and said, if we have a girl, she'll be named for you. And of course, she couldn't use Anne. Or if we have a boy, be named for my brother. So she was a girl. So she's Claire Maria. And I'm Anne Claire.
Oh, I've never heard of being named after you're naming a child after a child. That's cool.
Yep.
So if there had been another sibling, would they been named after her? If they were a girl?
Then they would have been Maria something. Or
A
my
little
brother was
confusing.
Bernard Joseph. So
Kind of like George Foreman, all the kids named
his
George.
name person would have been Joseph.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That makes it easy, I think.
Not if
Except
you're
for
at the
the kids.
Or
house.
like Moriarty. The Moriarty brothers. They're all named James.
Are they? Well, in our house, my dad was Dan. So Dan and Ann were difficult. If my mom yelled it out, you had no clue. My brother was okay, but we digress. Guys, this has been a full meeting. I've enjoyed everything we've covered, and we do have Sandy. She gives us our goodbye toast, so we end on time as people have things to do today, and wish you well with all of them.
A toast to the Sherlocki-Anns. We're made up of Sherlocki-Anns. We like Sherlock Holmes. We've read all his tomes. And psst, secret, not all members are Anns. The end. To the
Here,
Sherlocki-Anns.
Here,
That's
here.
a great one, Sandy. Thank you. Our next meeting is in August. We'll warn you all, and thank you so much, Ann Lewis, for being here.
Oh, no problem. Hey,
Yeah.
Sandy, is your middle name Ann?
No.
No. Okay.
And I have a middle name I hate, so I never use it. I don't even use the initial. I use the initial my
Sandy
Ann.
Kozan.
Yes.
No, I'm just saying Kozan.
Well, she's Sandy. She's in the middle of her name is an
Sandy,
Ann.
yeah.
Yes.
At the middle of the name I've changed because
Right. She's got it right in
what
her
I
name.
like.
It's a Andra.
Let's see. I'm going to end the recording, but we can keep
I have
talking.
Ann at the end of mine, but you have to go backwards to see it.
Well, we were
Oh,
saying
yeah,
at
okay.
one time, as long as you had an A and an N, and you could spell Ann out of letters in your name, you're good.
Well, I have S, and if you notice when I send you messages, the AN is always in caps.
Yes,
My N, it's only got one N. Sorry.
Max does that too. He's I love that. In his emails, he capitalized the Ann in his name.
Yeah. And I have a sister-in-law named Anne, so without
There
an
you go.
without an E.
We do not exclude anybody based on their name.
By the way, the name Ann means great, full of grace. So we're all very graceful people.
Yes.
Good point.